Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm covering Destinies Witchwood from Lucky Duck Games. Destinies Witchwood is the standalone expansion to Destinies that I've already covered in this channel a while ago. You can check that out. I'll have a link to that down below. And I'm specifically saying covering and not review because there's a single scenario in this prototype and a single scenario with some changes, and it's mostly the same game you've come to know and love in Destinies. And I say come to know and love, realizing you may not have played Destinies, so it's the same game roughly that Destinies is, which you may or may not know or love, and we'll talk more about that in this video. Now before we dive into it further, first of all, this is a game found campaign. I'll have a link to that down below, as well as the fact that this is a prototype. All rules, components, all that stuff subject to change, although being based off an existing game and being the follow-up standalone expansion, all that, I imagine those are mostly going to be the same as the original game. So, Destinies. Let's give you a high-level view of what Destinies is and some of the changes that Witchwood brings to the table because, well, a lot of overlap there. So, Destinies is a story-based game, a story encounter-based game, not a campaign game in which you're going through, although Witchwood will have some aspects to that we'll touch upon, but it's a story-based game which you're going to be starting off somewhere on the map over here, and then going through an exploratory aspect as you utilize the app. It's an app-based game which you're going to be going through this, picking your app, picking your scenario over here, starting off, choosing your characters and getting all this set up, choosing your normal, challenger, explorer, let's see, normal mode over here, you're choosing your characters, you'll go through a degree of story. You'll have, well, skipping the story over there, choosing your characters, hitting go, setting them up as necessary, and then going through setup processes on the game over here. So it's just kind of skipping through this rapidly. Don't know how well you can see all that, but the village of Hearthfire, your home. You're going to go ahead and set down an encounter, then start setting up various aspects onto those as you slowly go through a process of exploring those tiles. What you're doing in this game is you set up, you put down your characters, you put down the point of interest, you put down all the various little tiny little miniatures on the board, and then on your turn you're going to have the option to move and have an encounter. You can stay where you are and have an encounter, or you can move and have an encounter. But before you dive into that, you're going to go ahead and look at the back of your character, where on the back of your character you're going to have different story arcs that you can pursue. Every character in the game has two different primary story arcs you can go through, and the characters do have overlap in those arcs, so you may find yourself trying to explore the same pathway, the same progression as another character in the game. You're going to start wandering around the map trying to be the first person to get to your encounter, and this is where the game diverges. If you're playing it solo, you're playing it basically on a turns timer. You have X number of turns to accomplish your goals. If you're playing it with other players, then all the players are basically racing against each other to explore the area, to explore the map, to have these encounters, to talk to various characters, all while players are kind of involved in this puzzle of figuring things out. I may be going for this objective, and you may be going for that objective, or we may be going for the same objective, and getting bits and pieces of information as we talk, as we explore, as we talk to that village elder, as we wander from this location to that location. Eventually, you're going to go ahead and hit the end game, start moving towards the end game of the scenario, and someone eventually will walk away being the winner of that scenario in the competitive version, as opposed to the solo version, which you just either win or lose based on the turns timer. That's the high-level overview of what Destinies is. It's story with a degree of managing different things as you go through it, taking different skill checks. You're going to have your own skill board over here. Every turn you're going to be refreshing a die as you go through it, and then whenever you have the opportunity to take a test, you're choosing one of these attributes, or more specifically, the game is testing one of these attributes, as you choose to roll your two main dice and possibly expend some of your extra dice, which are limited resources, and then weigh up that total. That's a very solid roll right there. 4 plus 3 plus 3 is 10 over there, and let's say we're testing for blue, you would look at 10, and for each pip below 10 or at 10, that's a success. You'll enter that into the app and get a result, and this is where you don't always know the result you need. The game's classic example is, you know that chopping down a tree takes more effort than opening a door, but you don't necessarily know how many successes one is versus the other. You have this vague idea, and the game will inform you whether you passed, failed, or to what extent. Along the way, you're having a variety of other encounters. You're going to be collecting tons of items from the various item decks. You're going to have a QR code system where you can scan the QR codes at different points to interact with different people. You're talking to an elder and they want to see something you collected, and you go ahead and show them that, and they give you pieces of information about that item. You'll also have the opportunity to trade in these experience tokens to level up your stats, to constantly improve who you are and how you're progressing through the system as you try to figure out your own unique competitive advantages and make your way to the end of the scenario, ideally winning. That's the core Destiny system. I've already reviewed this on this channel, and spoiler alert, I really like the system and I'm a big fan of the sense of story and race that the game gives you, with the caveat that I don't find the solo mode that enjoyable. I find the solo mode more constrictive and restrictive with the timer aspect, as opposed to the competitive aspect. I like the process of exploration as we all explore, not based on an abstract timer of you have like 10 turns left, but rather based on who's going to get there first. As far as Destinies Witchwood, what does Destinies Witchwood do differently? Well, scenario-wise, it gives you more scenario content. So if you're someone who's been enjoying Destinies and you want more content for the game, well, Witchwood's going to give you that more content in a slightly wilder setting, a little bit less of a standard medieval setting, and a little bit more of a general wilderness and mythical stuff, and the Witchwood. The Witchwood's in the name, and it kind of matches up to the content that this game is giving you, at least based on the one scenario I have so far. So first of all, off the bat, more content. Secondly, there will potentially be some degree of carryover of things that interact with you from scenario to scenario, a little bit more carryover than what you had in Destiny. Still not really campaign in a typical sense, but some degree of lastingness to what's going on in the world around you. Thirdly, you have a bunch of new concepts going on in the game. Things like exploratory mazes, kind of. You can have these multiple times in this, even in just one scenario alone, multiple times you're faced with these options to kind of explore a bit, and you move north, then west, or you go here, then there. You're making these choices, but the choices will have different potential outcomes, which means if you kind of remember how you progressed and you don't find the thing you wanted the first time round, maybe next time you go east instead of west, or you may move north, northwest, and you're going to go through a process of exploration. Although it's worth noting that it's not always just guesswork and memory. Very often there are opportunities, or I should say almost, I want to say always, I think there's always opportunities to find some sort of indicator of how you should have progressed. The guesswork and exploratory aspect are just if you didn't get that map or encounter aspect that gave you that information. Past that, there's going to be other aspects. So you can see on the table over here, there's going to be separate, disparate elements of the map broken up with degrees of encountering from one to the next. That's going to be another aspect where the game kind of breaks up certain sections, so it's not always a singular large map. Sometimes it's separate map sections where you can travel from one to the next, which again has a degree of potentially slowing you down or forcing you to remember the various shortcuts from one area to another, or even just the core travel points so you can go from one area to the next. There's also going to be concepts such as traveling merchants, where you can go ahead and talk to traveling merchants and lay down a bit of a cards from the card decks you have, and then engage with encountering with them and trying to buy or sell to those merchants and whatever they are buying or selling. Well, I think they're buying everything, whatever they are selling to you. So Destinies Witchwood, in short, is 90% what Destinies was, or even 95% what the Destinies experience is. The additional 5% are going to be small changes, new concepts that have been added to the game. So far, well, let's talk about opinions, I guess, shortly. With new concepts added to the game, and then, of course, like I said already, more content for the Destiny system. As far as, not really review, but opinions on it so far, it's more Destinies. More Destinies both in flavor and in mechanics. If you like Destinies, you'll like Destinies Witchwood, or I should say, I like Destinies and I like Destinies Witchwood. Overall, the same things that I like about Destinies are present in Destinies Witchwood. The introduction of assorted new mechanics to the game all do the job overall. They're nice, solid mechanics. They're not really game-breaking anyway. They don't change my opinion positively. They don't change my opinion negatively. They're more stuff, more things. I'm happy to have them. For me, the thing I was wondering is whether the solo aspect of the game would be improved upon, and to that end I've dove into Destinies Witchwood, both solo and multiplayer, to see if solo was improved upon, and for me solo still isn't the ideal experience for me as far as Destinies go. I still love it as far as a multiplayer interaction. I still love the sense of story, exploration, adventure, all that stuff. I think it's a very simple, streamlined system with excellent app integration that just gives me a really, really solidly enjoyable experience. And I find the solo mode is still just a timer where I don't love, and solo, for the context, has two ways to do it. There's a general exploratory aspect where you get that sense of exploration but no sense of race in any sense or form, and then the competitive aspect is more where you're doing a race against the clock, and I just don't find that as rewarding as a race against the other players. So solo for me, still not loving it, versus competitively and cooperatively, well, competitively, very much loving it, and I just think it's more Destinies content in a good way. So all the thoughts, opinions, and everything I had about Destinies just applies equally to Destinies Witchwood. Same thematic integration, same degree of just general solidly world building, same excellent app, same overall mechanics. It's more Destinies in a good way. Once again, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this helpful in some way. I'll have a link to the campaign down below, and as always, I hope you have a good one.